Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Wednesday, March 4th, 2020. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays. On today's show, transit plans get shelved again. We dive in.
And finally, Fletcher Sharp joins me to talk all things Detroit City FC, men's and women's teams.
So let's just dive right in.
Stop us if you think you've heard this before, but the latest effort to revive an expansion of regional transit in Detroit is dead on the vine. House Republicans in Lansing have shelved a bill that would have allowed Macomb County to opt out of a regional ballot transit proposal because it proved divisive among the GOP caucus. In particular, Republican lawmakers from northern Oakland County argued they would pay the tax without receiving benefits from it. The bill would have amended the Regional Transit Authority Act by allowing a county to opt out of a service area. Remaining counties could place a tax of up to 3 mills on the ballot for a popular vote. Bill sponsor Diana Farrington, a Republican from Utica, says she has no plans to reintroduce the legislation. State Representative Jason Shepard, another Republican, was also a supporter and introduced an earlier version of the measure. In a statement, Oakland County Executive Dave Coulter said voters, not politicians, should decide the issue. He accused Republicans of being fueled by, quote, false information.
Sven, how is it that this RTA can get created in 2012 and there is still no funding for it?
Welcome to Detroit, my friend.
I mean, Metro Detroit, where we don't fund or give a crap about anything that actually brings us together.
Tell us how you really feel.
I mean, look, Warren Evans made a point in a statement to Bridge that I thought was really interesting.
The Wayne County executive.
Yeah, the Wayne County executive. And he said, are we a region or are we a group of isolated areas that pay lip service to regional issues? I know that he's trying to rally the troops, but I'm skeptical. And I am, after 20 years of watching this issue and other issues like it, I think that we are a group of isolated communities that pay lip service to these issues. And it is why we have not made the progress anywhere near that we should have in the last 20 years. And I am sick of this same story over and over again. And if you ask folks, and I do ask folks, and I have reported these stories about why people leave this region, why they're continuing to leave this region, it's because of stupid stuff like this.
I agree. We seem stuck in this paralysis in this region where we fundamentally cannot come to any sort of agreement on investing in ourselves and bettering ourselves. We seem stuck with the status quo as if somehow it's good enough. I don't understand it because, I mean, I look around and I see so many things that are in huge need of improvement. Jared, you and I talk about it all the time. We both travel to other cities. We've visited other cities. We've lived in other cities. We know that things could be way better here. Like other cities do way better jobs at things like transit than we do, and yet
roads.
Roads.
Our roads are a disaster.
And schools,
yeah.
For example. I mean, we have so many problems that we just somehow seem incapable of tackling.
Well, and it's frustrating as somebody who loves Detroit and loves the people here, and so many of the people here, that it feels like there is like group after group that has to get created to kind of pull a tab out of one of the many problems that we have. So many nonprofits, so many things, they're all competing for dollars. And like it's this patchwork when it's like, if we actually focused ourselves a little bit, we could make huge change. And look, I get it. Like out in northern Oakland County, and I've talked to folks with this who've said straight to my face, well, if Detroit does well, my home value is going to go down.
Yeah, which is just absurd.
Because so much of our value and worth in this region is tied to
We're not Detroit.
Our home. Yeah, we're not Detroit. And that's part of what I think artificially pops up a lot of home values where it's like, well, it's not Detroit. And if Detroit does well, you know, you look at national trends, people are picking urban areas. You look at the growth of, well, your corner of town in Ferndale or other places that are more urbanly minded. You think about, I mean, heck, even, you know, some of the young people moving into places like the Grosse Pointes, who would have thought, or Dearborn, because people want to be closer to the center.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really resent in this argument, there's this whole argument that like Oakland County, and especially northern Oakland County, western Oakland County, would be paying more somehow. Like this goes back to like L. Brooks Patterson. I don't know if he invented it, but he definitely sort of picked up the mantle and ran with it and trumpeted it loud from his soapbox.
Why didn't we use L. Brooks Patterson when he was alive? That would have been good.
Anyway, it's this idea that, people in northern Oakland County are somehow paying more. Well, they're trying to deliberately, I think, sow confusion that somehow these people are literally paying more. They're paying more because they're not paying more in as a rate. They're still paying the same rate as everybody in the region would pay. It's just that, one, it's a function that Oakland County as a whole has a high population, right? A larger population than Macomb, certainly, and the city of Detroit. But two, that, property values in places like northern Oakland County are higher than they are in, say, Detroit, certainly Oak Park, Hazel Park, Ferndale, whatever.
Well, I mean, but some of those areas are going up, like Royal Oak,
they are going
Woods
up, of course.
going up.
But I mean, arguably, homeowners in places like Oak Park or Detroit would be, feeling the strain to pay this tax. I mean, it's going to take up a larger proportion of their household income than somebody who lives in a McMansion way out in, say, Clarkston or something.
But think about even the opposition to the DIA millage, like out in Macomb County.
Yeah.
Like, it's just about that whole idea that we're just not going to pay anything. Like, we just don't want to pay in. We don't want to continue to pay in.
Right.
What is the equivalency of 1 month of Netflix to keep that going?
Right. So I was reading the New York Times last night, Jer, and I knew we were going to be talking about this issue today, and I came on this. This is an opinion piece by Ross Douthat. He's a conservative columnist for the Times, and he's writing about how we're living in this, as he puts it, an era of decadence. And he defines decadence as kind of like this malaise that's born of stagnation, right? He kind of compares us to like ancient Rome, which I've heard people do before. And he argues a lot about how we have been for decades now over-reliant on tech to drive all of our innovation, and he's holding up as examples things like Uber and Theranos kind of as cautionary tales, right? And I came upon this line, I'm going to read it here, because I think it kind of crystallizes what's happening here is that we're sort of like, and he's not writing about Detroit, obviously, he's writing about the United States, but I think it's apt that we're sort of incapable of yearning for like grandeur for grandeur. We can't wrap our brains around grand things. Here's what he writes. We used to travel faster, build bigger, live longer. Now we communicate faster, chatter more, snap more selfies. We used to go to the moon. Now we make movies about space. Amazing movies with completely convincing special effects that make it seem as if we've left Earth behind. And we hype the revolutionary character of our communications devices in order to convince ourselves that our earlier expectations were just fantasies, Jetson stuff, that this progress is the only progress we could reasonably expect. So, I mean, it's the same kind of mindset, like it's good enough. We can't do any better. We just need to live with what we have.
Well, and that makes me think of one of the arguments I also hear, that the plan should be bigger, that there should be trains involved and all of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Now, we all know.
I mean, you and I would love that. We're
sure.
Transit boosters. We both use transit all the time.
It'd also be much more expensive, not necessarily that effective, depending on where you put it. But there are people obsessed with, if we're going to do this, then let's make it really big. But I worry that that's a red herring argument. I worry that there is no argument that will win because it's the cultural identity. The cultural identity of this region is the car. And I think a lot of people look at it and go, well, if we're not the Motor City, what are we? And you talk about selfies and technology. I think about the rise of identity politics. Now, it's always been there, but more and more people look at it and go, well, this is all I am. This is who we are. And if we do something other than the car, if we do something different, that questions our whole culture. But I think, to me, I think about the evolution of a place and that things are not going to be the same way it was 20 years ago. People talk about Amsterdam, and there's a few other European cities that are so bike focused and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go online and see photos of car-choked streets a quarter century ago. They made a decision that they would like to have a more pleasant place. Like, there are multiple cities in Europe.
Yeah, that's happening all over Europe now.
Right. Like, this is a decision. This isn't a default. We can have a better country if we decide that we are going to do it. What I see is a bunch of fear when what we need is almost like that Kennedy style, like in the piece, go to the moon, right? That Kennedy style, like,
Yeah.
let's,
We've lost our ambition.
well, and maybe that's one of the things we need to think about even with our regional transit leadership. Maybe it needs to truly be about ambition and a vision instead of just the minimum. And that is a very different way to look at it. And I know that kind of questions some folks, but what we're doing now isn't working. I've been here for 20 years. We've had only minor things on the edges happen. Something has got to change, or else we're just going to be in the same boat, and businesses will continue to not choose Detroit over other areas, and people will continue to leave, and we will only have ourselves to blame.
All right, let's talk sports ball. And we've got Fletcher Sharp on the line to do that. Fletcher, we normally talk to you about the Pistons. They're still in action, but they're frankly still a hot mess. I think we've kind of covered that pretty well. Meanwhile, soccer season is now officially underway. Detroit City FC have launched their first full season of professional soccer in Nisa. They traveled to Southern California over the weekend and left with a 2-0 victory over the Los Angeles Force. Fletcher, I know you weren't able to travel with the team, but how'd they look and what happened? And it seems like pretty good start to the season, yes?
Honestly, outside of the first 3 or 4 minutes where the defense was just spraying passes out of bounds past each other, they controlled that game, which, listening to the game and doing some research while the game was on, I realized at that point, while the LA Force were the Western Conference champions who played against Miami FC in the final, but losing to Miami FC, who went undefeated, they only scored 8 goals all of the showcase season. So their offense was very much just not there. They were known for kind of getting a goal and grinding it out.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit pinned them back the entire game. The entire game, even their goals came by way of loaned player Matt Lewis, and then fan to player Roddy Green got a goal late with a nice taken shot. But even if you took those goals away and it was still 0-0, Detroit pressured them the entire game and just kept control. I was kind of surprised at how easily they kept control. Although their roster is kind of the same, they're using a lot of players who were either on loans. This was their first game with Detroit. So seeing them kind of just control the game would be a good outset going forward for this spring season.
Yeah, especially on the road so far away. Long trips for road games, with all these teams in California, that's going to become a big issue. You got to figure in the season coming up.
Yeah, if you're a fan trying to travel, you're going to get your frequent flyer miles in, definitely.
That's for sure. City are now off until their home opener, which is less than 3 weeks from now. Hard to believe, given the weather outside. But it comes Saturday, March 21st at Keyworth when they host Oakland Roots. All right, let's transition. We now have the schedule for the inaugural Detroit City FC women's team. They're going to be playing as one of 9 teams in the United Women's Soccer League. The team's first match, they kick off play May 9th, so we have to wait a little bit longer for that. That's at Keyworth. There will be a 4-team tournament in July to determine the Midwest champion and the opportunity to move on to a national champion tournament. Fletcher, shape up the season for us. Who are the favorites in the U.S. The UWS Midwestern Division?
So the old fans of Detroit City, who have maybe not been paying as much attention to the teams Detroit plays, will be relieved to see some familiar faces. AFC Ann Arbor has a women's team. Lansing United has a women's team. Grand Rapids FC has a women's team under the guise of Midwest United. Former Michigan Stars, FC Sparta Michigan, has a team known as the Detroit Sun. Even Muskegon has a team. It'd be a far drive to go cover that if you really want to go see it, but hey, there are some players out there too. For my overview of the season, Lansing's really good. Really, really, really good. As poor as their men's team can be at times, Lansing United's men's team, when they were around, the women's team has always been consistently good. While they don't have a title, they've been the best performer out of the Midwest the past 2 years. AFC Ann Arbor has a few really great midfielders and a few good wingers. Midwest United is the only team in the division to have a national championship, although that was a while ago. Their last season, they were not that great, but they're still a solid team to have around. Detroit Sun has a few notable players who've played at Oakland, a few names people might know if they watch women's soccer. One of them plays in the DCFL. I'm not really sure how that works, but hey, whatever. So yeah, it's going to be an open-ended league, kind of like the old MPSL was, where Detroit was like maybe a head or so half above people, but like they could also lose 2 teams. I see Detroit FC women's team competing because just the Detroit FC brand is going to attract people to want to play with them. Just like the men's team, they'll take players from other places who are like, this is closer. I'm going to have at least 2,000, 3,000 fans in the stands. Hopefully they can get 7,000 for a game. That'd be great, just like the men's side. But like, I'm going to get all these people to watch me play, and that's going to be great. But I do know Lansing is talented. I'm not going to just say like they'll be better because they'll have more people to watch.
Yeah.
Lansing is a solid team. So if they can beat Lansing, the 2 games they have against them, that'll really let me know that they're ready to win the season.
Okay, last up, Fletcher. City announced a couple new ticket packages. One is a 4-match plan. It allows fans to attend any combination of 4 men's and women's matches for just $32. The other is a family bundle. It gets you 4 tickets to a single match with 4 food and drink vouchers for just $75, and as just a way of comparison, single match tickets this season will be $12 in advance, $15 on the same day. So, with this 4-pack of food and drink vouchers, $75, Fletcher, what's your favorite thing to eat when you're down at Keyworth covering a match?
I don't really get to eat stuff as much just because I got to keep my hands busy. I made the mistake of getting some beignets, which were delicious. And it was a double mistake. 1, because my hands were all powdery and I couldn't write. And then 2, I kept trying to get up at odd times to go try to buy more. But the game would not end. It's like, we have extra time. We're going to go 55 minutes into extra time. Like, no, I need this to stop. So I can go get beignets and then sit down and eat them quickly and then get back to working. But if I had to choose something off the top of my head, the beignets, they're great.
Yeah.
It's almost like being in New Orleans and eating one down there. So
sounds good. I'm gonna hit up Amici's Pizza and give them a little shout because I bartended at several matches last year and may do so again this year at the city matches, and those guys do a nice gesture where they bring over pizzas for the bartending staff, and it's pretty good pizza. I gotta say, I like their stuff.
Definitely.
There we have it. All right, Fletcher Sharp, everybody. He covers Detroit City FC for us, and we have him on the show frequently. Thanks so much, Fletcher.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that'll do it for today's show. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget that we do this every day right here on your favorite podcast app, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, we're getting to work on our very own Daily Detroit app.
Sven, we're engineer Randy. We are putting him through his paces.
Come on, Randy. Work harder.
Anyway, be sure to tell a friend about the show. It is the best way to push Detroit's conversation forward. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit.